There's something that MUTHIORA has mentioned, my good friend Majimbo, about guys supporting PBI during the day and in the night they are bashing the document. The story was on Daily Nation over the weekend. And I also read what happened at Movenpick when the governors were meeting. And the governors are saying, all right, they have a lot of reservations about the document, but because they fear being victimized. And I'm seeing the MCAs have given a raft of demands. I'm also seeing the government is really dilly-dallying. They don't want to make a statement. And they're saying that we fear that if we make a statement, these guys might come for us with all these bumped up accusations on corruption and all this. The DCI is on the watch. So the question is, all right, tuliambo tutakunywa kama penicillin, madawa ya malaria. What do you think it leaves people who have divergent views? Where are they left? Especially those in leadership.
In my view, that's the major undoing of the handshake, because we were told the handshake was coming to unite Kenyans, but as it's turning out, it's sidelining other Kenyans. Right now, if you express any divergent view on the handshake, you are likely to be pursued by the police. Police officers are being used to settle political scores. That is very unfortunate, Gerald, because in such a democracy, such a country like Kenya, where we are right now, we expect people to be honest. We expect leaders to be straightforward. When Raila and Uhuru had that particular handshake, we had high hopes that everybody would be on board, and that we would not see this kind of shenanigans where police officers and the DCI, also the Director of Public Prosecutions, are being used to settle political scores. It is true that some people are afraid to air their views on this particular document just because they know they will be pursued. Either they will be haunted by a corruption scandal that is non-existent, because you see most of us do business with the government, and you see the moment you do business with the government, they will come up telling you you did this particular business with the government, you were paid, you supplied nothing, and at the end of the day will come and find that that case will collapse. So I must express my concern about this kind of politics that is ongoing. Let us embrace divergent views. Let us accommodate people who want to air their views on this document. We cannot all agree. We cannot all agree about this report at this particular time. But if we are in a position to accommodate divergent views, the better, because we will reach a consensus. And if at all a referendum comes, we'll have a less contested referendum.
All right. MUTHIORA, yesterday, over the weekend, ODM has lost an election official in Kwale. That is where we are having a by-election. Musambweni, actually, there's an ODM official who have lost his life, and an as of date of COVID-19. Meanwhile, counties are struggling. That is the story on page on the Standard on the headline. County hospitals crippled as 6 Kenya shillings MPs lie idle at KEMSA. Lack of critical medical equipment due to inaction at government agency immobilizes counties, exposing health workers and patients to virus as suppliers cry foul. The big question is who will come to their aid? The question is, the president the other day was giving us raft of measures on how to contain the virus. Does it mean that one of them is not releasing PPEs to hospitals?
Well, the thing is, we need to be very, very serious about holding the president accountable. Usually, he's big on talk, but when it comes to action, he dilly-dallies. He often does not deliver. So he will give these guidelines, but then he's the first to flout them. You saw what happened in Naivasha. He was there hugging people. How are we supposed to take him seriously when he says we should follow curfew guidelines? When he says we should, all that. Now, that aside, we should also look at this government in the eye and tell them that you cannot be the same people auditing yourselves and giving yourselves A's when it comes to the management of this pandemic. And unfortunately, they've been doing that. You hear them talking about how well they have handled this pandemic. And you wonder, is that in Kenya? Because in Kenya, just like that article captures, we have this equipment that's supposed to be taking care of our people, but it's not. It was bought at inflated prices. It's lying idle, and yet it's required by our frontline soldiers in this pandemic. So let us say we are far from getting it right with regard to COVID. The responsibility is solely yours, you as an individual. We all know what we need to do. Let's not wait for the fire brigade. It's not coming.
Tuanze kubeba maji na ndoo.
Chukua jukumu. Wewe kama baba pale nyumbani. Wewe kama mama. Mtoto ufuata ambavyo unaambiwa na wazazi. Serikali katika hii pandemic ina upungufu mkubwa. And unfortunately, like down in the estates, we have a lot of harassment by the police. It's not that they're enforcing the COVID measures. It's just that we opened another cash cow, another avenue for them to rake in money from Kenyans. So extortion has now descended to the very lowest level. It's unfortunate, but then the one thing we can do to beat this whole system is let's just do what we're supposed to do. Wear a mask whenever you're in public, sanitize, wash your hands, social distance, and then plan in advance kwamba hali ya afya ikibadilika, you seek medical care, but do not wait on the government to deliver you. We are beyond that point, and we have no capacity, let alone the willingness. Yeah.
Gerald,
even as we talk about directions, Majimbo, the president the other time said they were going to ban all the rallies. Now akasema kwamba now it's only town halls. I saw some meetings in stadium in Nyeri that happened just the other day. At what point is the president really serious about his directives?
I actually wanted to agree with what my brother has said fully. And I want to add that we have the most dishonest leaders in Kenya, because when a scandal was announced at KEMSA, the cabinet secretary Mutahi Kagwe was the first person who came out to defend all the procurement processes at KEMSA, saying that no money has been lost. Now what do we have? We have people who are going to be prosecuted in court because money was actually lost. So you wonder if really the president was a serious person. The first person who was supposed to have gone home was CS Mutahi Kagwe, because he came out defending these people, yet they embezzled funds, they misappropriated funds. Now, coming to your second question about the president having banned rallies, but we still see this politician holding rallies. You see, in Kenya, we are never serious. And that's one of our main problems. Even in the next 1 or 2 weeks, you will see the president himself moving around holding rallies. That's one of the problems we face. If we are able to pass policies and follow them strictly, then we will be a super perfect country. But the problem is we pass policies, we pass laws, we pass regulations, but we use them to do other things the same way my brother said, extortion. We give the police officers a cash cow. We give them an avenue to extort innocent citizens. Yeah.
All right. You have any remarks on the same? MUTHIORA.
Well, I'll reiterate what I just said, that the responsibility is solely yours. And I'm glad, well, there is a front I can congratulate the government on, and that is the awareness has been created. Today, people no longer believe that COVID-19 is a fabrication. They know it's a disease and it's here. So since we have that awareness and we know what we need to do, please do not wait on someone to come and force those measures. Take responsibility. They say have a town hall meeting and enforce the guidelines. And then they go and have a meeting in a stadium. Since when did a stadium become a hall? For Christ's sake, that will be the biggest hole in the world. I think we need to change the definition of a hole.
All right. So we take a small break tusikie kuna video iko hapa, video of the day, tusikie video of the day, tukirudi tuweze kuchambua na kuna pia maswala ambazo zitafuata hapo on the issues to do with education. Leo tusikie kwanza mambo ya makoa. Mambo za makoa.
Sir, I send out a report. This is what needs to be done. This is being addressed.
Wrong. You are talking about the report. I'm talking about what is here on
Sir, you have noted. We are acting on it.
Can you step away from this meeting now? When you meeting with officer? Yes, sir. And then we come to our CPD. Town director. He doesn't understand the problem. So
All right, that is the county of education. That is the county director of education Uasin Gishu County and Makoa. Makoa alikuwa anamwambia nikisema ni mjinga nitakuwa nimedanganya. Wewe ni mjinga sana. Toka hapa, enda hapa. I mean, these are public servants. This is not a private. Kenya is not a private entity. Like now, this is my hardware. You know, I call the shots here. These are public servants that you pay tax for. And what does that make you feel as a as a taxpayer, as a person? And what is it about public servants in Kenya? Does it mean that you need to be arrogant to be seen to be authoritative or to be working?
Of course not. When you have an opportunity to serve the people, it's an honor, it's a privilege. You should take it with humility. Unfortunately, Professor Magoha, who happens to have been my vice chancellor at the University of Nairobi, is one person with this bigger than life character and personality. And sometimes he feels he doesn't need to apologize to anyone. But one thing I need to remind him with a lot of humility, civility costs nothing. When you're handling people, please, if you can't be anything else, at least be kind, because that civil servant, for them to be where they are, they've given a lot. And I can assure you, even though sometimes we don't hit the right grade, people give their all, appreciate what they're doing, and even when they are wrong, find a civil way to communicate with them. Do not denigrate them like he did there. It's not right. It should be called out. And I hope others are watching as well. I remember his CAS, a young guy. There's a time he visited some office, and in the same manner, he was talking down to people older than himself and threatening about how he would even fire them. I think this is a bad culture that the old professor is instituting in the Ministry of Education, and he should desist going forward.
Majimbo,
Yes.
what does that make you feel?
I want to say that I understand Professor Magoa very well. We know he is a strict man, but the way he behaved was a bit out of order, because you cannot go on belittling a fellow human being in public. You know, in our constitution, we have an elaborative Bill of Rights. And one of the rights we have is a right to dignity. So you see, when you start talking down to a fellow individual in that kind of manner, of course you are infringing on their right to dignity. In proper democracies, this warrants a dismissal. In fact, because there's already been a public outcry, we would have seen the CS take that step and step aside or resign from that particular office, because this actually stinks in the face of Kenyans. Yeah, you cannot go on belittling Kenyans in the public. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the safety of also children, because I saw the other day the president say that the children can remain in school, but he's saying that the pandemic is running and there are all these management measures. We have already seen cases that have come out of coronavirus in Nakuru and to other schools that have come out, Mombasa, and all that. We even lost a teacher in Mombasa. I mean, what do you feel in the strategy of the way the government is managing the COVID virus, and also the way it's mismanaging children? Are we trying to say that the children are going to fight it out, but the adults cannot?
The truth of the matter is our strategy is not based on facts or science. I would have loved for Kemri to come out someday and tell us this is why the virus is not affecting us as badly here in Kenya as it's doing in Europe or the US. Because the truth is, the virus is not as potent in Kenya or Africa as it is in those other countries. Now, when you act on something like this without facts, backed by science, then it's what I would say in Swahili, ni kama unapapasa kwa giza. Aujui utaibuka na nini. You could end up hurting your hand on a sharp object or stuff like that. So it's regrettable that our children are in the hands of people who are not serious about their job. You remember the first case that was reported about schools was Kolanya. Randomly, out of 100, there were 52 positive cases. They've not come back to us to tell us if they tested everyone else, because they just tested 100, left the others, and from these 100, they got 52 who were put in quarantine. Is anyone following? I don't think so. And why are we not following? You can imagine if you are a parent and your child is in such a school, what you go through. Because number one, they tell you, you cannot pick your child from school. And then number two, information is not forthcoming. And I'm privileged that often people reach out to me and they tell me about what's going on the ground. So this government needs to do better than it's doing. Our children are not safe in those schools. But then they're not safe at home either. What we need to do is what I mentioned earlier. Let's just take personal responsibility. It's true that when you get the virus, it could put you down. But then let us not be afraid that once you get sick, you'll not recover. We've seen a very high recovery rate. So let's not panic. Let's just push to follow the guidelines as they've been given to us. Let's demand more from our government. You saw health workers going on strike last week. That hasn't been resolved yet. Yes, we have our courts pronouncing themselves on the matters, but then the government during a pandemic like this should address the needs of the medical caregivers so that we do not have the unfortunate situation we have right now.
All right. What are your thoughts, Majimbo?
Without watering down all the advances that have been made to mitigate COVID-19, I would say that in Kenya we are doing that what we call kuflona current. When other countries announce that they have COVID, that's what we do. When they announce that now they are facing a second wave, that's what we purport to do. But tunasema pia sisi tuko nayo. If you look at the matrix we use to determine COVID-19 deaths in Kenya, it does not make sense at all. Because today, if I had COVID, then I go out there and I'm hit by a motor vehicle, they would say I died because of COVID. That doesn't make sense at all. Let the Ministry of Health change the matrix of determining COVID-19 deaths. I want to agree with my brother MUTHIORA that this virus is not as potent as it has been reported in other countries. And when I come to the issue of schools, I must say that it was a grave mistake to reopen schools when the year 2020 had primarily been done. The announcement that the president made the other day that schools reopen in January 2021, that was the proper approach to take, because we had already wasted the whole year. What was the rush? There was no rush at all. So there was no need for us to take back our kids to school, then make them guinea pigs. Go test them. You know, right now, if they come to this room and test test us for COVID-19, they will find some of us have this particular virus, but we are okay. We are surviving. We are healthy. I have myself done a study, and I was telling my friend that right now they have tested close to, it's not 1 million Kenyans, but maybe 500 or 600, and we have close to 60,000 cases. If they were to test 50 million Kenyans right now, that means we would have more than 10 million people testing positive for this particular virus. What does that mean? There are Kenyans who have this virus, but of course we are not dying. Yeah, so let us change our approach about COVID-19. I remember when we started, the state came about with some regulations. Actually, they were draconian. They were used to punish people who were flouting the rules. You know, when they arrest you on the road past the curfew rules, they take you into an isolation center, and you do not have any. You are not infected. In fact, you go there and get infected. So our approach about this virus has been different. In fact, people have said that we were pretending to have this particular virus so that we could get some money from those international organizations, which if you put me in a corner, I would tend to agree with.
Until you put you in a corner, you'll not agree.
Okay. Just allow me to add this. COVID is serious business. COVID took Donald Trump home. There is over 70 million US citizens who believe that Donald Trump should be given a second term because he governed that country's economy better than a lot of other presidents have done. And they thought he deserves it. Just about 4 million more believed in Biden. Here in Kenya, we don't think that the management of COVID is such a serious thing. We should wake up. This is a pandemic. It has affected our economy. It has affected our social life. It has basically affected every sector of our life. Tuache kuchukua hii kitu rahisi. Hilo ndo ombi langu.
All right. Let's get back as we talk about American elections in America. Let's also discuss Tanzanian elections. MPs in Tanzania running to Kenya seeking political asylum. In fact, Tundu Lissu alikuwa amekimbia pale embassy ya Germany pale Tanzania anatafuta asylum. Do you think pale pia Museveni amevunja miguu kina Bobby Wine? Great things happening there. And actually, technically, I think Museveni has seen almost all the presidents of America. What is it about democracy and Africa? What will democracy ilikoseana in Africa?
Well, it's just that Africans after an election do not feel that they have a responsibility left. Kwamba sisi ni twende tupige kura au wenye tumechagua wafanye mambo yao. But you see, democracy ina maana kwamba baada ya uchaguzi mimi kama mwananchi nina jukumu la uzalendo kuhakikisha kwamba ahadi ambazo zilitolewa zinatimizwa. Tukiwa na kiongozi kwa mfano kama Magoha hivyo ambavyo ana kashifu na kukemea na kukejeli wadogo zake na yeye ni mtumishi wa umma, we call them back in line. So our worst undoing is we let these big men be, and that should change. Museveni, well, it's true, he rose or ascended to power through the barrel of a gun, and maybe we might need to get him off through the same mechanism, but he's done saving that nation. Right now he's taken it back to where it was when he took over. But unfortunately, the people around him, because they are afraid of losing whatever privilege comes with that clout, they won't face him and tell him that, boss, imetosha hapa sasa, unachoma. In Tanzania, they had an election, and this takes me back to the thing about democracy. You have wolves and you have a sheep, and you say, let's vote what we're going to have for dinner. It doesn't work like that. Tanzania has had this culture of people, even though they support the ruling party, those who dissent elect their own MPs. Now, tell me, how popular is CCM? Remember, it has not transformed people's lives. Yes, they have done a bit of work on infrastructure, on the port, on the airport, but then people's lives have not undergone transformation. How then do you cut down the number of opposition MPs from as many as they were to just 2? A president rising from whatever he got to 84% within just that short duration of time, amidst a period where human rights abuses have hit a record high. You talk about the media facing the worst kind of victimization, and you tell me it's okay? Come on, let's face it. Kuna dunia ya juzi, kuna ya jana. Kenya tuko ya jana, Tanzania tuko ya juzi.
Ya juzi ama ile siku nyingine kabla ya juzi.
Sasa huko tafadhali wakaribie kwenye karne ya 21 ambapo sauti za watu ndio wengi wape, lakini wachache wasikize. Hiyo ndo demokrasia. Now when they run away, it's because the threat is real. Tundu Lissu was shot severally. There was an attempt on his life, and not once, but a number of times. So I hope countries such as Kenya will offer them refuge and asylum, because the threat in Tanzania is real. That's why to date, watu wana COVID, hata kama hawafi, the cases are not reported because the media there imekanyagiwa chini. Yeah.
All right. Majimbo.
Well, when I look at Kenya and compare to Uganda and Tanzania, you know, sometimes I feel proud because we've been able to enhance our media freedom. Our media can freely speak about issues. What is happening in Tanzania and Uganda is that Magufuli and Museveni are reading from the same script with the likes of Kina Adolf Hitler, Mussolini. These are true fascists. Because you see in Tanzania, Magufuli has managed to create an illusion that things are being done in a proper way. He has managed to make people happy. People are thinking that his kind of leadership is what they need. So when it dawns on them, when they realize that things are not proper, and it normally happens, and it will happen. We remember the Soviet Union when they were changing leadership. When the new leadership came into place, now that's when people realized that we were being lied to. This is what is going to happen in Tanzania. When Magufuli gets out of power and we have a new person who's not a puppet, we have a new person who wants to come in and bring in 1 or 2 changes, people will realize that Magufuli was messing them. Right now we know that in Tanzania the media is not allowed to report any cases about COVID-19. It's because it is there, but they are creating an illusion that it is not there. In Uganda, Museveni instills fear in people. The other day, Bobby Wine went and handed in his nomination papers. Immediately he finished, Museveni sent his police officers, they arrest Bobby Wine. The same thing has been doing to Besigye. I don't know if he's going to run again. So he rules by instilling fear. Even the citizens themselves, they fear him, because if you dare make any comments about his style of leadership, those police officers, I don't know if they're police officers or it's the army, they deploy them to come after you, they harass you, they frustrate you, they arrest you. This is the kind of leadership we saw in the 1945, the old century, where people were intimidated, people were threatened just because you want to rule by fists. It's not welcome in this era, in this particular century.
All right. Kuna pia story hapa, unajua mambo ya education na ina mambo kweli. Inasemekana kwamba headmasters wameanza kuiba desk, wanasema the state wants headmasters again stealing state wants over desk theft by 8 teachers. And one of the most surprising things I was asking myself is, what was the common sense of getting desks from Nairobi to take them to Shamakoko or to Bomola? And I was saying actually there is desk that was refused by government, made from bamboo. wamekataa kwamba wezi chukua. The question was, why could we not localize these procedures getting tests for schools?
That's because devolution happened, and when you devolve things, pesa inaenda mashinani. So inakuwa vigumu wewe kuiba. One of the reasons why they pushed to open our schools was so they could open budget ya Ministry of Education. Wapate justification ya kutumia pesa. Sasa wao ku centralize ilikuwa ili that jar from which they always pick isiwe iko mbali sana. That much I can tell you. It wasn't about quality. No, it wasn't. I have a group of ex-convicts who won a tender to make these desks. And from the talk by the Ministry of Education, it was they were supposed to fund them, at least wapatie 50% wafanye kazi for everyone who got the tender. But I can confirm here now that these people who are trying to rebuild their lives did not get the boost that they needed. So the tender they have is not worth anything more than the paper. I can say these people are not looking to deliver service. First, ilikuwa njia ya kutoa pesa kwa coffers. And that's why initially the plan was to have all the resources in the national government and then of course disburse it through the county commissioners. Now these cases will continue because there's nowhere we can take them. Impunity thrives in Kenya. When you hear that a headmaster has now decided to also ajijenge pia kila mtu anakula mimi mnaniletea desk hiyo pia ndo nitaponyoka nayo. It's this culture tumezoea kwamba penye uko
lazima kulia hapo.
Which is wrong.
Anasema punda inakula urefu wa kamba yake.
Okay, hiyo ni sawa, lakini urefu wa kamba ya mhudumu wa umma ni ule mshahara ambao anapata na marupurupu halali. Ridhika. If you want to be rich, don't be employed to earn a salary. Go out there, follow a revolutionary idea. You'll be wealthy.
What?
But if you're in the public service, please remember pillar number 1 is integrity.
Pambana na mambo ya wananchi.
Hapo humanity.
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 All right.